Hey everybody, I'm Jean Chadsky. Thanks so much for joining me today on HerMoney. So, TikTok. Yeah. It's not only the place where we go to get advice on everything from cleaning our house to what's going on in the stock market, not to mention the place where we lose track of hours of our time in what feels like minutes. It's also a place where tons of people have been making money these past few years. Creators are tapping into an audience that loves their personal brand, their niche, and they're monetizing that through sponsored content, ads, and selling products on the TikTok shop. In an effort to stall the proposed ban by Congress that says TikTok has 6 months to sell to a US-based company or be shut down, the company released a report that said it has generated $14.7 billion for U.S. small businesses. That's just in the last year, and an additional $24.2 billion in total economic activity supported through small businesses' use of TikTok. Well, today I've got one of these creators on the show. Gigi Gonzalez is an unapologetic spokesperson for a new bicultural approach to personal finance. She's also the author of a great new book. It's called Cultura and Cash: Lessons from the First-Gen Mentor for Managing Finances and Cultural Expectations. Gigi's got 200,000 followers on TikTok and credits the app for helping her spread her message and grow her brand. Gigi, welcome to the show. So nice to have you here.
Jean, thank you so much for having me on. I've been a long time HerMoney podcast listener, and your show completely influenced my financial education journey. The podcast was always a safe space for me to learn, and I am so thankful for that because now I get to spread this message with other women. So thank you so much for that.
That is what it's all about. Right? I mean, I think, first of all, thank you for saying that. That makes me feel really good. But part of what I've always felt is that we need more voices. We just need more voices with good information that can help people get where they need to go. And so I'm thrilled that the 200,000 people who are following you have found you on TikTok because they're learning and you are bringing them along, and that is what everybody needs.
Thank you so much. And a fun fact that I like to share too, since I started my money education journey in 2019, I really started geeking out about money and learning everything I could about improving my finances to the point where my aunt started calling me Giovanna Chatsky. Because she used to watch you like back in the day on Oprah or like the Today Show. So she's always like, Giovanna Chatsky, you got to write a book on this. You're very passionate on this. So she always had that vision for me, and she was always very encouraging of me doing what I'm doing now.
Oh my God. Well, tell her that is hysterical. That is really, really funny. Talk to me about TikTok. When you first started using it, was it your vision to create a personal brand, or were you just going out there to share some good advice?
Not at all. Not at all. I joined TikTok in March of 2020, very much as a distraction from the pandemic. The news was so chaotic at that time, just everything was so unstable. So it was a nice distraction. At the time, I was working in investment management. I was an investment performance measurement and reporting analyst for a large custodian bank. And I liked my job. I liked my career. I had a very clear path for upward mobility. I love the company that I work with. But on the side, I had developed this passion for financial literacy by listening to your podcast, by reading a bunch of financial literacy books. And I decided to share this knowledge with specifically women of color in my community. At the time, I was living in Phoenix, so I started working pro bono as a volunteer with the YWCA teaching financial education. So they had the curriculum, and I would facilitate a budgeting 101 workshop or investing 101 workshop, and it was great. It was a fun hobby, and again, TikTok was just a nice distraction from the pandemic. But that changed in March of 2021 when I was inspired to share these same tips that I was already sharing with my community by adding my voice to the platform on TikTok. And again, it came very naturally to me because I was already doing this in my community. I was being a volunteer for 2 years. I was also mentoring first-gen students from my alma mater. So I had this passion for empowering the younger version of me with financial education tips as well as career advocacy or learning the ropes as they're entering corporate America.
What was it that enabled you to make the leap from this job in finance that you like to being a full-time content creator?
I was kind of forced to. As I'm sure you know, the finance industry is heavily regulated. And my account, so I started posting content in March of 2021. I got really lucky and I went viral the next month, April of 2021. I gained 100,000 followers overnight. And with that large following, that's when I started getting an influx of requests for paid opportunities. Hey, can you come speak to our college about budgeting 101? We'll pay you. Do you do money coaching? Hey, what's your rate for a brand deal? We want to sponsor a video. And I'm like, oh, I was doing this for fun. I can make money off this. Okay, right? And I knew from my job, we had to get written approval for any outside paid work. And it was immediately denied because it was illegal and a reputational risk. So I very much had a fork in the road of, okay, I just stop this fun hobby and focus on my career because, again, I have a very clear path. Or for once in my life, I take a bet on myself and see where this passion takes me. And it's been 3 years now since I took the leap.
For people who are thinking about a fork on the road that they might hit, was there ever a moment where you thought, oh, I should just go with the sure thing?
Absolutely. That was my first reaction. My first reaction when I got the denial from my job was, all right, this is where it ends. It was a fun hobby while it lasted. But I'm very thankful that I had friends and family that said, hold on, what are you doing here? There's something here. You are very passionate about this. It's all you talk about to us, right? Because again, to the point where my aunt calls me Giovanna Chatsky. So they said, you need to check this out. And I'm like, no, I work very hard on my career. I have a path. And they knew that I had savings because I had been saving aggressively for the last couple years to quit work to go on a sabbatical to travel the world. I had this very big dream of traveling the world while young for a year and returning to my corporate career. And they're like, what if you use that money to explore this new opportunity? I said, hell no, that is my travel fund money, my fun money, not to build a business. And after thinking about it, and really looking inward and again, getting a lot of guidance from people that love me and encouraging me and telling me, you always played the safe road. You picked the safe major, the safe job. Now you have the financial ability to bet on yourself. Check it out. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to your corporate job.
Let's switch gears. Your book is really focused on first-generation Americans. You have focused on helping first-generation Americans. What does it mean to be a first-generation American? Why is the starting line for first-gen folks different from third or even second-generation Americans?
Thank you for asking. Yes, so this is a term that I learned myself 3 years ago. I was always a first generation American, but I didn't know it. So first generation American is typically the first to be born in the United States to the children of immigrants. So my parents are both immigrants from Mexico. They came to California in the 90s in search of a better life for their 3 children. And the reason that it's important to name my unique experience as a first generation Latina in this country is because our starting line in wealth building is very different from, let's say, a family that's been here for 4 or 5 generations. First, I'll start by saying, of course, none of us get access to financial education in school, and I'm glad that there's finally some policy work that's moving the needle on that. But also, I would argue that some people who have been in this country, maybe their grandparents were the ones who immigrated here, so they aren't necessarily the children of immigrants, but maybe their great-grandparents did. By those generations being entrenched in the U.S. financial system for 2 or 3 generations, you get some institutional knowledge passed on about how the U.S. financial system works. What is a checking account? Maybe you won't know the ins and outs of the stock market, but you'll know the basics of what a credit card is and the importance of credit in the U.S. Because credit isn't something that's worldwide, right? It's very much specific to the U.S. And so it's, and our parents as immigrants, if you think of the immigrant lifestyle, it's a very tough lifestyle. My family They left our extended family to move away. They're in a new country, having to learn a new language, sometimes experiencing racism, taking jobs that pay them a very low income because they don't have the skill set, right, to get higher paying jobs. And it's hard raising a family of 5 with 2 low income jobs. So my parents' priority, instead of teaching me how to be financially savvy, their priority was just to keep the lights on, to keep food on the table. And wealth building wasn't even something that came to mind. And if anything, because of their mistrust of financial systems in their home country, like in Mexico, they don't really trust anything here either, right? They bring that mistrust here, even though our financial systems are much more regulated. And the last challenge that I would add would be that we aren't on the receiving end of generational wealth. I think the statistic that I cited in the book is that 7% of Latinos receive generational wealth compared to 30% of our white counterparts. And that does affect our money journey, right? Having to go to college and get yourself into debt because your parents didn't have a 529 for you. Or for us, a big burden is having to financially support our parents in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you said you started putting money boundaries into practice with your family, and initially that wasn't met with a lot of love and a lot of good feelings.
Acceptance.
What
No.
happened?
Yeah, so I learned the hard way that in a Latino family, the only acceptable answer when your family asks you for help with money is yes. Anything less than yes, like a maybe or a not right now, or I don't have that much, but I can help you with this, is very much seen as disrespectful, ungrateful, and that you're leaving family behind. And I've learned through time the reason is that the Latino culture operates as a collectivist culture where they're very family oriented, very communal, which means that money is communal. So if somebody has a financial emergency in their family, you're supposed to dip into your savings to help them out. That's what you have to do as a good family member. And the traditional personal finance books that I had read hadn't talked about any of that. So when I implemented the finance advice that I learned, there was no guidance on boundaries. So I just said, I can't help you because I'm focusing on my own budget. I'm focusing on paying off my debt. And it was not good. It was not pretty with family. Yeah, so it was, I had a lot of tough times, and I very much was labeled as a black sheep, even though I was just trying to be financially responsible.
So how did you come back from that, and how would you suggest that people who are trying to manage their own budget and their own responsibilities navigate it today? And I got to tell you before you answer the question, I mean, I guess I would be third generation. My parents were born here. Their parents were not born here. Some of them. My grandparents, my grandfather had 9 brothers and sisters, and one of them went to law school, and the rest of them helped pay for that. And then that brother helped take care of my grandmother when she had cancer, right? I mean, that's sort of what it was. And so your description sounds not familiar to what I've gone through in my own life, but what I've heard in stories of my family.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're living it right now.
So how did you come back from it, and how would you suggest that other people who are looking to take care of themselves and their family deal?
Right. And this is a method that I teach in the book, Cultura and Cash. It's called the Quiero y Puedo approach, which in English it translates to I want to and I can. And this framework really helped me understand when to give to family and when to lay a boundary. So the first check is, quiero, do you want to? And it's important to first ask yourself, do you even want to provide this financial support? Because a lot of us are just instilled to say yes and be people pleasers again, even if it means digging ourselves into a hole, into debt, to help other people when we're really in no position to be helping others when our own finances are a wreck. So first it's like, do I want to? Do I want to do this because I want to show up for family, or am I being guilted into it? Am I being shamed into you're not being a good daughter, so you need to give us this money? And the reason I bring it up is because for a long time, I gave money to family out of a sense of guilt, and I felt my arm was being twisted, and that eventually led to resentment because I wasn't doing it on my own terms. So it's very important to give freely on your own terms. So that's the first check. So once you've kind of passed that check, okay, yes, I want to be here for family at this time. They need me. Perfect. I love that for you. Now ask yourself, can you? Puedes. So how are your finances looking? Do you have enough savings where if something happens to you, you're going to be okay because they're asking for help because they're broke. So if you deplete your savings, who's going to bail you out, right? Nobody's going to be able to help you. So it's important for my reader to just be honest with themselves, make sure that they are working on paying off their debt. You know, if they're buried in credit card debt, maybe it's not the best time to financially be supporting family. I give the example of if they're asking you for $1,000 for a medical bill, maybe say, hey, I can't contribute that, but I can help with $100, right? That's still some sort of financial support. Or if you can't contribute with money, contribute with your time or resources. Hey, I'll come over to the house and cook some meals so that you guys have an easier time while grandma's in the hospital, right? So it's about finding that bicultural approach of still wanting to take care of your individual needs, but still showing up for family when you want to.
And what does it mean to your family now that you're able to build generational wealth, to start building generational wealth?
Honestly, I don't think they understand it still. I still get bullied for not being a homeowner because to a lot of my family, that's what they see as the pinnacle of success, owning a home. So the fact that I'm 34 and still renting, they're just like, why are you wasting money on rent? And I've explained to them that it's not wasting money. It fits my lifestyle. And I'll show them my investment portfolio, which is almost at $200,000, and it doesn't register. It isn't. So I know. So I just kind of have to keep trucking through. Even though they don't get it, they know that I'm able to take nice vacations, that I live in a nice apartment, that I have a nice lifestyle, but it still doesn't quite register.
We're going to talk about a different part of your family. I'm going to talk about your spouse. So, Gigi, I know from TikTok that you did not check for financial compatibility when you started dating your now spouse, and that presented some challenges. What kind of challenges?
That is the biggest euphemism I've ever used, challenges. And I actually, I came up with that with my spouse. I said, hey, I'm making an ad about this, and I want to be honest with my audience. How, we had a lot of trouble in our marriage because of this. He said, just say challenges. I'm like, all right. So yeah, we said challenges. It was tough. We did not have the money discussion probably until our 10th date. And by that point, I was already in love. So it was hard. It was hard when I found out that this person that I had fallen in love with had $60,000 in credit card debt.
Whoa.
Yes. And he assured me I'm working on debt consolidation and it'll get paid off. I have a plan in 5 years. It'll be taken care of. Only that didn't happen because he ended up switching jobs and he took a pay cut because his high-paying job was very stressful. So with the pay cut, he wasn't able to keep up with the big payments with his debt consolidation plan. So what made sense for him at the time was bankruptcy. And I've talked about that with my TikTok audience. I've actually had a follower that one time said, oh, like, I'm not going to take advice from you if you marry somebody who filed for bankruptcy. Yeah. And I made a clapback video, is what the kids call it, of like, he made a mistake. He knows it wasn't right. He's getting a fresh start and he's developing better habits better. You can't just write people off. I was smart enough to not get married to him until the bankruptcy was done. So we delayed getting married until then. But besides that, we've also found he was struggling implementing the financial teachings. I mean, he had the best financial education teacher, me, to help him.
Giovanna Chatsky,
exactly. But we found he wasn't able to execute, which was hard on our marriage because I'm like, okay, you filed for bankruptcy. I taught you everything you need to know about money, but but you're still not building savings. You're still not investing aggressively. There's still a little debt here and there. What's going on? And we found through therapy that he had financial trauma. His parents used to argue a lot when he was a child over money. So he developed this negative association with money. If money means arguments, people are mad. So he just dug his head in the sand and didn't want to deal with that.
And how is it now?
Much better. Much better. He's made a 180. I am very happy with our finances, and I'm so proud of him.
Oh, that's fantastic. Our audience also loves hacks, and I know you've got a 3-step hack that you teach to help people improve their credit score. Will you share that?
I do, and I'm so glad I came up with this hack. I showed it to my little brother, and it works. It works. When I taught it to him when he was 18. So I said, all right, Pablo, we're going to go to the bank, open up your first credit card. And I told him, this credit card is not going to be for you to use on everything. It's just going to be for you to build good credit. And he's like, how do you do that? I said, all right, we're going to pick the first step. We're going to pick one small recurring bill. I said, do you have a Netflix account? He said, no. He said, I have Amazon Prime. He's like, that's like $12 a month at the time. And I said, okay, perfect. So we're going to pick a small recurring flat bill like that Amazon Prime. We're going to charge it on this credit card. You're not going to use this credit card for anything else. You're going to use your debit card for all your other purchases while you're learning to build credit. And the second step is setting up auto pay for that credit card to be paying Amazon Prime, right? The third step is to have your bank pay that credit card on autopilot. So it's all automated, and because it's always paid on time, because automations, it helps with credit building, and because it's such a small amount that's being charged, it's still showing activity, but it's always lower than that credit utilization that you're supposed to use, right? And yeah, he listened to me. He didn't touch the credit card for anything else, and he has excellent credit now. So I'm really proud that I was able to help him, because I was the oldest. I didn't have anybody to guide me, so he had his big sister to kind of light the way for him.
Amazing. I've got 2 younger brothers too, so I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
One of the other myths that you bust in your book is that you should only invest once you're debt-free. And this sort of falls into the category of trade-offs that we have to deal with all the time. How do you balance it?
Yeah, I like to tell my reader that waiting until you're debt-free is such a big mistake, because you don't know how long you're going to be in debt for. I mentioned that if I would have waited to start investing until I was debt-free, it would have been until I was in my late 20s, and I would have missed out on 10 years of compound interest, and you never get that time back. So I say it's a balance, just like everything else, right? It is important to save for the future, but also to be aggressive with any high interest debt. So I give them the rule of thumb that if the interest rate is over 5%, you should probably be focusing most of your energy on paying off that debt, finding extra income to pay down the debt. And then if you have a lower interest rate, then you can be more aggressive towards your investing. But it's very important to do both. Don't just fully go hard on investing and ignore your debt, and vice versa.
Absolutely. And thank you for being our guest today. Where can we find you?
Sure. So if you want to learn more about my book, you can visit culturaencash.com. The book is available at all major online retailers, although I do recommend you support your local bookstore or shop at bookshop.org. I will say the book is unapologetically written for first-generation Latinas, which means that they're the people that are going to get the most out of the book, and that's because I sprinkle in a little Spanglish, or I'll share some Spanish dichos that are well known in our community. But if you consider yourself an ally or somebody that works with first-generation students, it would be a very helpful book for you to read to understand the unique struggles of first-generation Americans. And again, you can go to culturaencash.com to learn more.